The arrival. Imagine stepping into a world of luxury only to be sneered at by someone who thinks you don't belong until the tables turn. And the one laughing last is the legend they never saw coming. What happens when Michael Jordan, dressed like an everyday guy, walks into a five-star hotel and faces a receptionist who has no idea who she is really dealing with? Welcome to Epic Stories, where we bring you tales of resilience, kindness, and unexpected twists that'll leave you inspired. If you love gripping narratives that hit you right in the heart, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below letting us know where you are watching from. Now let us dive into this unforgettable story. The sun dipped low over Miami's shimmering coastline, casting a golden glow across the sleek glass facade of the Regal Haven, a five-star hotel nestled along Ocean Drive. Known for its opulent suites, breathtaking ocean views, and a clientele that included CEOs, celebrities, and the ultra-wealthy, the Regal Haven was more than just a place to stay. It was a status symbol. Palm trees swayed gently in the breeze outside, while inside, the lobby gleamed with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and the faint hum of sophistication. Guests in tailored suits and designer dresses moved through the space, their voices a soft murmur against the trickle of a nearby fountain. Into this world of extravagance stepped Michael Jordan, the basketball legend, whose name echoed through sports history. Didn't it look the part today? He wore faded blue jeans, scuffed sneakers, and a plain black t-shirt that hung loosely on his athletic frame. A worn baseball cap sat low over his eyes, shielding his face from casual glances. To anyone passing by, he could have been a tourist wandering in from the beach, not the icon whose Air Jordan empire had redefined a generation. He carried a small duffel bag slung over one shoulder, his steps unhurried as he approached the reception desk. Behind the polished counter stood Samantha Brooks, a 28-year-old receptionist with sharp features and an even sharper attitude. Her auburn hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her crisp uniform, complete with a gold name tag, projected an air of efficiency. Samantha had worked at the Regal Haven for 3 years, and in that time, she'd mastered the art of sizing up guests in seconds. To her, the hotel was a sanctuary for the elite, and her job was to ensure it stayed that way. She prided herself on spotting outsiders before they could disrupt the carefully curated atmosphere. As Michael reached the desk, Samantha's eyes flicked over him, her lips curling into a faint, dismissive smirk. She leaned forward slightly, resting one manicured hand on the counter. "Good evening," she said, her tone clipped and dry, the kind of greeting that barely masked her judgment. "Are you sure you are in the right place? This is the Regal Haven, not a budget motel." Michael adjusted the strap of his duffel bag and offered a small, easy smile. "Evening," he replied, his voice low and steady. "ID like a room, please." Samantha raised an eyebrow, her gaze lingering on his sneakers before sliding back up to meet his eyes. She didn't bother hiding her skepticism. "A room," she echoed, as if the request itself was absurd. "Do you have a reservation?" Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but she made no move to type. "No reservation," Michael said calmly. "Just looking for a place to stay tonight." Her smirk widened into something more cutting. She tapped a single key with exaggerated slowness, then glanced at the screen as if confirming something she already knew. "Well," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "we do have a few rooms available, but I should warn you this isn't exactly a walk-in kind of place. Our standard rate starts at $600 a night. That before taxes and fees." She paused, tilting her head. "You sure you're up for that?" Michael's expression didn't waver. He nodded once. "That is fine. I'll take it." Samantha let out a short, incredulous laugh, loud enough to draw the attention of a nearby couple checking in with Louis Vuitton luggage. They glanced over, curious, as Samantha crossed her arms. "Okay, sir," she said, her tone now openly mocking. "Let's just see what we can do. Follow me, I'll get you sorted." She grabbed a key card from a drawer with a flick of her wrist and turned sharply, not bothering to check if he was keeping up. She led him past the lobby-esque grand staircase and down a quieter hallway, away from the gleaming elevators that whisked VIPs to the upper floors. The air grew faintly stale as they approached a less traveled wing of the hotel. Samantha stopped in front of a door marked Room 108, a small, outdated single room tucked near the service entrance, where the hum of a vending machine buzzed faintly in the background. It was the kind of room reserved for last-minute bookings or overflow, far from the luxurious suites the Regal Haven was famous for. "Here you go," she said, slapping the keycard onto a side table just inside the door. The room smelled faintly of old carpet, and the view was a charming glimpse of a brick wall. "This should suit you just fine. It is cozy." Her smile was all teeth, sharp and insincere. "If you need anything, call the front desk, but only if it's really necessary." "Okay." Michael stepped inside, setting his bag down on the narrow bed. He glanced around, then back at Samantha, his calm demeanor unshaken. "Thanks," he said simply. "I appreciate it." Samantha lingered in the doorway, narrowing her eyes, as if trying to figure out whether he was mocking her or just oblivious. "You're welcome," she replied, her voice laced with venom. "Enjoy your stay, or at least try to." She turned on her heel and strode back toward the lobby, muttering under her breath, "He'll be checking out in an hour when he sees the minibar prices." Back at the front desk, Samantha leaned against the counter, smirking as she recounted the encounter to a coworker. "Can you believe this guy walks in here looking like he just rolled off a couch and thinks he can afford the Regal Haven? I gave him the worst room we've got. Let's see how long he lasts." Meanwhile, in room 108, Michael sat on the edge of the bed, pulling off his cap and running a hand over his head. He glanced out the tiny window, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The night was still young, and something told him this stay was about to get a lot more interesting. The game of patience. The Regal Haven-esque lobby buzzed quietly as the evening deepened. A jazz trio played softly in the corner, their notes drifting past guests sipping martinis and exchanging small talk. Samantha stood behind the reception desk, her posture relaxed now that she'd dispatched the problem guest to room 108. She flipped through a stack of reservation cards, occasionally glancing toward the hallway where Michael had disappeared, her smirk still lingering. To her, he was a small victory, a reminder that she controlled who belonged in this polished world of wealth. Down in room 108, Michael Jordan unzipped his duffel bag, pulling out a worn paperback novel. He settled into a creaky armchair by the bed, flipping it open to a dog-eared page. The faint clatter of a service cart rolled by outside, but he didn't flinch. If the cramped space or the peeling wallpaper bothered him, it didn't show. He defaced tougher crowds than this 20,000 fans booing in hostile arenas, and a snarky receptionist wasn't about to rattle him. He turned a page, his mind drifting briefly to a memory, a late-night conversation over burgers with his old friend, Marcus Tate, the man who'd built this very hotel from the ground up. Marcus and Michael went way back, their bond forged in the early 90s, when Marcus was a scrappy entrepreneur hustling to break into Miami's hospitality scene, and Michael was still dominating the NBA. They'd met by chance at a charity event, Marcus pitching his dream of a luxury hotel, Michael tossing in a few $1,000 to help him get started, more out of friendship than expectation. Over the years, that seed money had grown into the Regal Haven, and their friendship had deepened through countless late-night calls, pickup games, and shared laughs over life's ups and downs. Marcus always said Michael was his silent cheerleader, the guy who believed in him when no one else did. Back in the lobby, Samantha's attention shifted as a well-dressed elderly woman approached the desk, her pearl necklace glinting under the chandelier light. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice soft but firm. "I couldn't help overhearing earlier. That man you sent off, why were you so rude to him?" Samantha straightened, her rehearsed smile snapping into place. "Oh, it is nothing to worry about," she replied smoothly. "Just making sure our guests are comfortable. Some people don't quite fit the vibe here, you know." The woman frowned, adjusting her glasses. He seemed perfectly polite to me. You might want to rethink how you treat people. She turned away, leaving Samantha with a flicker of irritation. She brushed it off, muttering to herself, "Old lady doesn't know what it takes to keep this place running." An hour passed. Michael decided to stretch his legs and headed to the lobby bar, a sleek space with leather stools and a wall of glowing liquor bottles. He slid onto a seat at the far end, away from the chatter of a group of businessmen discussing stock portfolios. The bartender, a young guy with a quick smile, nodded at him. "What can I get you, sir?" "Whiskey, neat," Michael said, keeping his voice low. "Thanks." The bartender poured a generous glass of top-shelf bourbon and slid it over. "Rough day?" he asked, wiping down the counter. Michael chuckled softly. "Not yet. Just taking it as it comes." Samantha, spotting him from the reception desk across the room, narrowed her eyes. She leaned toward her coworker, a lanky guy named Tyler who handled guest services. "Look at him," she said, nodding toward Michael, ordering whiskey like he owns the place. "I bet he is just trying to look the part before he bolts." Tyler glanced over, shrugging. "He's not bothering anyone." "Maybe let it go, Sam." She scoffed. "Let it go. People like him think they can fake it till they make it. I am doing us all a favor by keeping standards up." The bartender returned with Michael S. change, but he waved it off. "Keep it," he said, taking a sip of the whiskey. The smooth burn settled in his chest as he scanned the room, catching the occasional curious glance from other guests. A couple at a nearby table whispered to each other, the woman tilting her head as if trying to place him. "He looks familiar," she murmured to her husband. "Maybe an athlete." "Nah," the husband replied, dismissing it. "Probably just some guy with too much confidence." Michael smirked into his glass. Confidence. Sure, but it was the kind earned through years of proving doubters wrong, on and off the court. Back at the desk, Samantha's patience wore thin. She decided to up the ante. She grabbed a phone and dialed housekeeping, her voice sharp. "Hey, make sure room 108 gets a late check-in inspection. I want to know if that guy is trashing it or sneaking out without paying." She hung up, satisfied, imagining the look on his face when staff knocked on his door. Minutes later, the lobby doors swung open, and a tall man in a tailored gray suit strode in. Daniel Carter, the hotel's general manager, carried himself with the quiet authority of someone who'd seen it all. His dark hair was streaked with silver, and his sharp blue eyes scanned the room as he adjusted his cufflinks. He'd been with the Regal Haven since its opening, hand-picked by Marcus Tate to keep the operation flawless. Daniel nodded to Samantha as he approached the desk. "Evening, Sam? Everything under control." "Mostly," she said with a tight smile. "Just dealing with a walk-in who's probably regretting his life choices by now. Gave him 108 figured he'd be out of our hair soon." Daniel S. brow furrowed slightly. "A walk-in what is he like?" Samantha shrugged. "Tall guy, beat up clothes, acting like he belongs." "IV got it handled?" Daniel nodded absently, his mind already shifting to a stack of paperwork waiting in his office. But as he turned to leave, his gaze caught a familiar figure at the bar. He froze mid-step, squinting across the dimly lit room. The cap was off now, and the profile was unmistakable, those broad shoulders, that easy posture. "No way," he muttered under his breath. Samantha followed his stare, confused. "What's wrong?" Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he started toward the bar, his pace quickening. Samantha watched, a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. Something was off, and for the first time that night, her smug certainty began to waver. The unveiling. The Regal Haven-esque lobby bar glowed with a warm amber hue, the clink of glasses and murmur of conversation filling the air. Michael Jordan sat nursing his whiskey, his broad frame relaxed against the leather stool. He'd pulled his cap back on, the brim casting a shadow over his face. But there was no hiding the quiet confidence that radiated from him. Across the room, Daniel Carter, the general manager, approached with purpose, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. Samantha trailed a few steps behind. Her curiosity piqued, but her smirk still intact. Daniel reached the bar and stopped a few feet from Michael, his expression a mix of disbelief and dawning recognition. He tilted his head, studying the man in front of him, then broke into a wide grin. "Mr. Jordan," he said, his voice carrying a note of reverence. "Is that really you?" Michael turned slowly, setting his glass down with a soft clink. He tipped his cap back, revealing his face fully, and flashed a familiar, easy smile. "Hey, Daniel," he said, as if they'd just bumped into each other at a corner store. "Been a while." Samantha froze mid-step, her arms dropping to her sides. The name hit her like a punch. Jordan. But her mind refused to connect the dots. She blinked rapidly, her mouth parting as she stared at the scene unfolding. The lobby bar seemed to hush, heads turning subtly as guests sensed something significant brewing. Daniel laughed, a deep, genuine sound that cut through the tension. "I'll be damned. Marcus said you might drop by one of these days, but I didn't think you'd sneak in like this." He clapped Michael on the shoulder, the gesture familiar and warm. "What has it been, 2 years since you were last here?" "Something like that," Michael replied, his tone light. "Thought I'd see how the place is holding up. Looks like Marcus has you running a tight ship." Samantha's smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. She edged closer, her voice trembling slightly as she interjected, "Wait, Mr. Carter, you know him." Her eyes darted between the two men, searching for an explanation that wouldn't unravel her night. Daniel turned to her, his grin fading into something sterner. "Know him, Samantha? This is Michael Jordan. The Michael Jordan. You've heard of him?" I assume his tone was dry, edged with a hint of reproach. "He is not just a guest, he is practically family here. Marcus Tate is best friend." The words landed like a thunderclap. Samantha's face drained of color, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. Marcus Tate, the visionary behind the Regal Haven, was a name she revered, a man whose standards she claimed to uphold every day. And Michael Jordan, the basketball legend, the billionaire entrepreneur, was his best friend. Her mind raced back to every snide comment, every jab she'd thrown at the man now sitting calmly at the bar. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. Michael glanced at her, his expression unreadable but piercing. "Don't worry," he said, his voice steady. "I'm not here to cause trouble. Just wanted a quiet night." Daniel shook his head, still chuckling. "Quiet night, huh? Well, you've got a funny way of keeping a low profile. Let me get you out of that broom closet. Samantha stuck you in room 108, right?" He shot her a sidelong glance, his disapproval clear. Samantha stammered, her usual poise crumbling. I didn't know, sir." He didn't say anything, and he looked. She cut herself off, realizing how shallow her excuse sounded. Her cheeks flushed red as she fumbled for words. "I thought he was just, Michael raised a hand, cutting her off gently. "It's fine," he said, his tone calm but firm. "No harm done. Yet." He took another sip of whiskey, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make Samantha squirm. Daniel crossed his arms, his gaze shifting to Samantha. "You thought what, exactly?" "That he didn't belong because he wasn't wearing a three-piece suit. Sam, we've talked about this. Every guest gets respect, no exceptions. But this is next level." Nearby, the couple who'd been watching earlier leaned closer, their whispers growing animated. "That's Michael Jordan," the woman said, her eyes wide. "I told you he looked familiar." "She's in for it now." Her husband nodded, sipping his drink. "Serves her right. She has been acting like she owns the place all night." Samantha shrank under the weight of their stares, the lobby's elegance suddenly feeling like a spotlight. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but Michael spoke first, his voice cutting through the hum of the room. "Let us take a step back," he said, sliding off the stool and standing to his full height, even in jeans and a t-shirt. His presence filled the space, an effortless authority honed from years of commanding courts and boardrooms. "I've got no issue with a little skepticism. Keeps things interesting. But there is a line between caution and disrespect. And tonight, we crossed it." Daniel nodded, his expression softening slightly. "Yes, right, Sam. This isn't just about who he is, it's about how we treat people. Marcus built this place to be welcoming, not a gatekeeping contest. Michael S. eyes settled on Samantha, steady and unflinching. You don't need to know someone's name or their bank account to treat them like they matter, he said. That's the rule I live by. And it is one Marcus and I agreed on a long time ago, back when he was sleeping on my couch dreaming up this hotel. I told him, make it a place where anyone can walk in and feel like they were home. Tonight, that didn't happen. Samantha swallowed hard, her throat dry. She remembered the stories Marcus told during staff meetings, how he started with nothing, how a few key people had given him a chance when no one else would. She'd always assumed she was honoring his legacy by keeping out the riffraff. Now, standing face to face with Michael Jordan, she saw how wrong she had been. Daniel clapped his hands together, breaking the tension. All right, let us fix this. Mr. Jordan, I am moving you to the penthouse suite on the house. Of course. Sam, you are off the desk for the night. We'll talk later. Samantha nodded mutely, her hands trembling as she stepped back. Michael picked up his glass, finishing the last of his whiskey. Appreciate it, Daniel, he said, then turned to Samantha. We are not done here. Stick around, I've got something to say to the team before I turn in. As Daniel led Michael toward the elevator, Samantha lingered by the desk, her mind spinning. The lobby buzzed with hushed excitement, guests craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the legend in their midst. But for Samantha, the night had just taken a turn she'd never expected, and it wasn't over yet. The lesson and the legacy. The Regal Haven S Penthouse Suite was a world apart from room 108. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a panoramic view of Miami's glittering skyline, the ocean stretching out like a dark mirror under the night sky. Plush velvet furniture and a sleek marble bar gave the space an air of effortless luxury, a stark contrast to the cramped, musty corner Samantha had banished Michael to earlier. He stood by the window now, hands in his pockets, gazing out at the city lights. The faint hum of the elevator signaled Daniel's return, and Michael turned as the doors slid open. Daniel stepped out, followed by a small group of staff housekeepers, bellhops, and Samantha, who lingered at the back, her eyes fixed on the floor. Her uniform was still pristine, but her confidence had crumbled, leaving her looking smaller, almost fragile. The other employees exchanged curious glances, unsure why they had been summoned to the penthouse at this late hour. Daniel cleared his throat, his voice steady but warm. All right, everyone. Thanks for coming up. Mr. Jordan has something he'd like to say. Michael stepped forward, his presence filling the room without effort. He wasn't in a jersey or suit, just jeans and a t-shirt, but the way he carried himself spoke of a man who defaced giants and walked away victorious. He scanned the group, his gaze lingering on Samantha for a moment before addressing them all. I am not here to lecture, he began, his voice low and measured. I've had my share of tough days on the court, off it, and I know what it is like to be judged before you even get a chance to prove yourself. Tonight, that is what happened. Samantha shifted uncomfortably, her fingers twisting the hem of her sleeve. The other staff stood silent, their attention locked on Michael. He continued, his tone softening but carrying weight. This place, the Regal Haven, it is special to me. Not because of the fancy rooms or the view, but because of the man who built it. Marcus Tate and I go back a long way. He was a dreamer with nothing but a notepad full of ideas. And I was just a kid from North Carolina trying to make a name for myself. We clicked because we both knew what it felt like to be underestimated. He paused, a faint smile tugging at his lips as he remembered. One night, back in '92, Marcus showed up at my place with a burger and a pitch. Said he wanted to build a hotel, not just any hotel, but a place where people could feel like they belonged, no matter where they came from. I gave him a little cash to get started, but what I really gave him was belief. He paid me back 100 times over, not in money, but in friendship. This hotel is his heart, and I promised I'd always have his back. Daniel nodded, a flicker of pride in his eyes. He'd heard the story before, but hearing it from Michael made it hit different. The staff listened intently, some leaning forward, drawn in by the quiet power of his words. Samantha lifted her head slightly, her eyes meeting Michael S. for the first time since the lobby. "Here's the thing," Michael said, stepping closer to the group. "You don't need to know someone's story to treat them right. You don't need to see a Rolex or a private jet to give them a fair shot. Marcus didn't build this place to be a club for the rich. It is a haven for anyone who walks through those doors. Tonight, I walked in looking like I didn't fit, and I got treated like I didn't belong. That says not on me, that is on us, all of us. To do better." He turned his focus to Samantha, his voice gentle but unwavering. "Samantha, I'm not mad at you. Have you been where you are thinking you've got to protect something? Keep it perfect. But perfection isn't about shutting people out. It is about lifting them up. You made a call tonight, and it didn't work out. That's not the end. It is a chance to start over." Samantha S.'s eyes glistened, a tear slipping down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Jordan. I didn't think. I was so caught up in the image, the rules, that I forgot what this job is really about. I treated you like you were less, and that S on me." Michael nodded, his expression softening. "Takes guts to say that. Apology accepted. But here's the deal, don't you just say it, show it. Tomorrow is a new day. You decide who you're going to be when the next guest walks in." The room fell quiet, the weight of his words settling over them like a warm blanket. A bellhop, a wiry kid named Javier, spoke up hesitantly. "Mr. Jordan, I've got to ask, how do you stay so calm? I'd have lost it if someone talked to me like that." Michael chuckled, the sound deep and easy. "Years of practice, man. You don't win championships by losing your cool over every foul. Pick your battles, keep your head up, and treat people better than they treat you. That is the play." Daniel stepped in, clapping his hands lightly. "Well said. All right, team, let's take this to heart. The Regal Haven S reputation isn't just about 5 stars. It is about how we make people feel. Let us get back to work tomorrow with that in mind." As the staff began to filter out, Samantha lingered, approaching Michael cautiously. "Mr. Jordan," she said, her voice steadier now, "thank you for not tearing me down. I promise I'll do better. I owe it to this place and to myself." Michael offered her a small, encouraging smile. "That's all I ask. You've got it in you, Samantha. Marcus always said the best people learn from their misses, not their makes." She nodded, a spark of determination flickering in her eyes, then turned to leave. Daniel stayed behind, shaking his head in mock disbelief. "You're something else, Mike. Marcus is going to laugh his head off when I tell him about this." Michael grinned. "Tell him he owes me a burger next time I am in town. And maybe a heads up to the staff so I don't end up in the broom closet again." Daniel laughed. "Deal. Get some rest. The penthouse is yours as long as you want it." As the elevator doors closed behind Daniel, Michael walked back to the window, the city sprawling out before him. He thought about Marcus, about the promise they'd made to build something meaningful, and about the small victory tonight, not in proving a point, but in planting a seed. In a world quick to judge, he had reminded a handful of people that kindness was the real game changer. And that, he figured, was a legacy worth leaving. The next morning, as he checked out, the lobby felt different, warmer, somehow. Samantha stood at the desk, her smile genuine as she handed him his receipt. "Safe travels." "Mr. Jordan," she said, "come back any time." He tipped his cap to her. "I will. Keep the faith, Samantha." And with that, Michael Jordan stepped out into the Miami sun, leaving behind a story that would echo through the Regal Haven for years to come. A reminder that true strength lies not in status, but in the choice to see the best in others. Ripples of change. The morning sun streamed through the Regal Haven-esque grand lobby, painting the marble floors in shades of gold. The air buzzed with a subtle energy, different from the usual polished calm. Guests lingered longer than usual, their conversations hushed but animated, their eyes darting toward the reception desk, where Samantha Brooks stood. Word of the previous night as events had spread like wildfire first among the staff, then trickling out to the guests, carried by whispers and knowing glances. Michael Jordan's quiet confrontation had become the talk of the hotel, a story too good to keep quiet. At a corner table near the fountain, the couple who'd watched the drama unfold sat over coffee, their voices low but eager. The woman, a petite brunette named Claire with a penchant for gossip, leaned forward, her eyes bright. "I still can believe it was the Michael Jordan," she said, stirring her latte. "And the way he handled that receptionist. Pure class. I'd have stormed out if she talked to me like that." Her husband, Tom, a stocky man with a salt and pepper beard, nodded thoughtfully. He didn't just put her in her place, he turned it into a lesson. "That is why he is a legend. Not just the basketball, though, God. Those Bulls games were something else." He chuckled, then lowered his voice. "Think she'll get fired?" Claire shrugged, sipping her drink. "Maybe not." He seemed more about fixing her than breaking her. Still, I'd bet half the people here are Googling him right now. She wasn't wrong. Across the lobby, a businessman in a pinstripe suit tapped away at his phone, his brow furrowed as he scrolled through articles about Michael Jordan's career, 6 NBA championships, the Air Jordan empire, his quiet philanthropy. "Huh," he muttered to his colleague. "Says here he is worth over $1 billion. And she stuck him in some dump of a room. Girl's lucky he didn't sue," his colleague smirked, adjusting her glasses. "Or buy the hotel just to fire her. But that's not his style. Did you hear what he said about Marcus Tate? Sounds like they were tighter than brothers." The story grew legs as the day wore on. A group of tourists checking out stopped by the desk to ask Samantha if it was true. Did Michael Jordan really stay here last night? Their voices a mix of awe and excitement. Samantha managed a tight smile, nodding curtly. "Yes, he did," she said. Her tone clipped but softer than the night before. The tourist grinned, snapping a photo of the lobby as if it were a celebrity hotspot now. "Wait till we tell everyone back home," one of them said, already typing a caption for Instagram. Behind the desk, Samantha's mind was elsewhere. The weight of the night pressed on her. Not just from the embarrassment, but from the mirror Michael had held up to her actions. She'd always prided herself on her sharpness, her ability to read people, or so she thought. But as she sorted through a stack of check-in forms, flashes of her past crept in unbidden. Growing up in a small town outside Miami, Samantha had been the kid who never quite fit in, too tall, too awkward, always on the outside of the popular crowd. She'd clawed her way into the hospitality world, starting as a maid at a roadside motel, determined to prove she was better than the hand-me-down life she'd have been born into. The Regal Haven had been her golden ticket, a chance to rub shoulders with the elite, to feel like she'd made it. But somewhere along the way, that hunger to belong had twisted into something else. She had started gatekeeping, wielding her clipboard like a scepter, judging others the way she'd once been judged. It was armor. She realized now protection against the fear of being seen as less. Last night, Michael Jordan had stripped that armor away with a few calm words, and she wasn't sure whether to thank him or resent him for it. By midday, the lobby had quieted, but Samantha's shift was far from over. She glanced up as Daniel Carter approached, his expression unreadable. "Sam?" he said, resting an elbow on the counter. "You holding up?" She nodded, forcing a small smile. "Yeah, just processing." "Good," he said, his tone firm but not unkind. "Mr. Jordan checked out this morning, left a note saying he'll be back next month. Wants to see how we're doing. That is a chance for us to step up, starting with you." Samantha swallowed, her hand stilling on the paperwork. "I know I messed up, Daniel. I'm not proud of it. But I meant what I said last night. I'm going to change." Daniel studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I believe you. Marcus built this place on second chances. He got plenty of them himself. Thanks to guys like Jordan. Don't waste yours." The rest of the day unfolded differently. Samantha caught herself mid-sneer when a young couple in flip-flops walked in, their sunburned faces beaming. Instead of a curt remark, she offered a genuine, "Welcome to the Regal Haven. How can I help you?" The shift felt awkward, like breaking in new shoes, but it stuck. Later, when a harried single mom with a toddler in tow fumbled her credit card, Samantha knelt to pick it up, smiling at the kid instead of rolling her eyes. Small steps, but they felt like a start. By evening, the staff gathered for a quick debrief in the break room, the air lighter than usual. Javier, the bellhop, grinned as he recounted the night's events to a new hire. Man, you should be seen at MJ standing there cool as ice, while Sam turned redder than a lobster, but he didn't yell, he just talked. Changed the whole vibe. The new hire laughed. Sounds like a movie. Think he'll really come back? He will, Samantha said quietly, stepping into the room with a tray of coffees. She set it down, meeting their eyes. And when he does, I'll be ready, we all will. Daniel clapped her on the shoulder as he grabbed a cup. That says the spirit. Let us make this place what Marcus and Mike always wanted, a haven, not a fortress. As the staff dispersed, Samantha lingered, staring at the framed photo of Marcus Tate on the wall, a younger version of him, smiling broadly at the hotel's grand opening. She thought of Michael S.'s words about kindness, about seeing beyond the surface. For the first time in years, she felt a flicker of something she'd buried long ago. Hope, maybe, or the chance to be more than her mistakes. Outside, Miami pulsed with life, the legacy of one night rippling through the Regal Haven. Michael Jordan might have left, but his lesson stayed. A quiet challenge to everyone who'd heard it in a world of snap judgments. Choose kindness. It is the play that wins every time. Brotherhood and a new dawn. A week later, the Miami heat had softened into a breezy evening, the kind that drew crowds to Ocean Drive's neon-lit strip. Michael Jordan sat on the patio of a quiet burger joint a few miles from the Regal Haven, the smell of grilled onions wafting through the air. Across from him, Marcus Tate leaned back in a rickety chair, his laugh booming over the clatter of plates. Marcus was a big man, not just in stature, but in presence, his dark skin glowing under the string lights, his tailored blazer open to reveal a crisp white shirt. He'd always had a larger-than-life energy, the kind that made you feel like anything was possible. So let me get this straight, Marcus said, wiping a tear from his eye as his laughter subsided. You waltz into my hotel looking like you just mowed the lawn? And Samantha, what is her name, Brooks? She sticks you in room 108, the broom closet. He slapped the table, sending a fry skittering across the wood. Man, I wish I had been there to see her face when Daniel dropped the bomb. Michael grinned, taking a bite of his burger, a double with extra pickles, just how they'd always ordered it back in the day. Yeah. She went from smug to speechless in about 3 seconds flat. Thought she might faint when Daniel moved me to the penthouse. Marcus shook his head, still chuckling. That's as my boy cool as ever. Most guys would be flashed a black card or dropped a name to shut her up. You let her dig her own hole, then pulled her out of it. That is why you re the goat, Mike. Michael shrugged, sipping his soda. Not about that. I just wanted a bed, not a showdown. But when I saw how she treated me like I was some nobody crashing her party, I figured it was a chance to say something. You built that place with a vision, Marcus. Didn't it feel right letting it slide? Marcus S. grin softened into something warmer, his eyes glinting with gratitude. You always had my back, man. Remember when I was crashing on your couch in Chicago, sketching floor plans on napkins? You didn't just toss me a few bucks, you told me I could do it. That's why the Regal is standing today, and hearing you set my staff straight makes me prouder than you know. Michael leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. That is the deal we made, right? You dream it. I cheer you on, but it's on you to keep that dream alive. Samantha S. Sharp. She just got lost in the glitz. Gave her a nudge, that's all. Marcus nodded, popping a fry into his mouth. Daniel says she has been different since Real Polite, even with the flip-flop crowd. Guess you lit a fire under her. You coming back next month, like you told him. Planning to, Michael said, his tone casual but firm. Want to see if the lesson stuck. Plus, you owe me a rematch on that pickup game you ducked last time. Marcus threw his head back, laughing again. Oh, you're still mad about that fine one-on-one. Loser buys the burgers, but don't cry when I school you. Old man. Keep dreaming, Michael shot back. their banter flowing as easy as it had 20 years ago. They sat there for another hour, trading stories about the Bulls' glory days, Marcus S. Wild early ventures, the time they'd snuck into a dive bar incognito and nearly got caught. It was the kind of friendship that didn't need a spotlight, built on trust and the quiet moments that mattered. Meanwhile, back at the Regal Haven, the hotel was gearing up for its annual Sunset Gala, a black tie event that drew Miami-S elite for an evening of champagne, live music, and oceanfront views. The lobby sparkled more than usual, with staff bustling to hang fairy lights and arrange floral centerpieces that spilled over with orchids. Samantha moved through the chaos with a clipboard in hand, her steps brisk but her demeanor lighter. She'd traded her usual sharp-edged commands for a softer approach, calling out encouragements instead of critiques. "Javier, those lights look great. Maybe angle them a bit more toward the bar." "Thanks, you re-killing it." Javier grinned, adjusting a strand. "You're in a good mood, Sam?" Jordan effect still kicking. She paused, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Something like that. Let us just say I'm trying not to be the jerk who ruins the party." The gala kicked off at dusk, the terrace glowing under a canopy of stars. Guests in tuxedos and shimmering gowns mingled with glasses of Prosecco, their laughter mingling with the crash of waves below. Samantha stood near the entrance, greeting arrivals with a warmth that felt foreign but right. When a young couple hesitated at the door, underdressed in jeans and tees, clutching a last-minute invite, she didn't flinch. "Welcome to the Sunset Gala," she said, handing them programs. "You're right on time. Grab a drink and enjoy." Claire and Tom, the couple from the lobby a week ago, spotted her from across the terrace. Claire nudged her husband, nodding toward Samantha. "Look at her. She's actually smiling." "I do say Jordan worked a miracle." Tom sipped his whiskey, smirking. "Or she's just scared he'll show up again. Either way, this place feels nicer tonight, less stuck up." As the night wore on, Daniel took the stage, a microphone in hand. The band paused, and the crowd hushed as he raised his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Regal Haven Sunset Gala. Tonight's about celebrating this place, its history, its heart. A week ago, a good friend reminded us what that heart is made of. Marcus Tate built this hotel to be a haven for everyone, and we recommitting to that. So here as to new beginnings, and to the people who keep us honest." The crowd applauded, a few glancing around as if hoping Michael Jordan might step out from the shadows. He didn't high tea, but his presence lingered in the air, woven into the night as spirit. Samantha watched from the sidelines, her chest tightening with a mix of pride and resolve. She'd messed up once, but she wouldn't again, not for Marcus, not for Daniel, and not for the man who had seen something worth saving in her. Later, as the gala wound down, Samantha stepped onto the terrace alone, the breeze tugging at her hair. She looked out at the ocean, the horizon endless and full of promise. The Regal Haven wasn't just a job anymore. It was a chance to be better, to build something real. And when Michael Jordan walked through those doors again, she'd be ready not just to greet him, but to show him the haven he had helped her rediscover, the test and the triumph. 3 weeks had passed since the Sunset Gala, and the Regal Haven had settled into a new rhythm. The staff moved with a quiet purpose, their smiles less forced, their interactions more genuine. Samantha Brooks had become a different presence behind the reception desk, still sharp, still efficient, but with an edge softened by intention. She'd taken Michael Jordan's words to heart, replaying them in her mind each morning as she pinned her name tag, "Treat people better than they treat you." It wasn't always easy, but it was a goal she chased with every guest who walked through the doors. That afternoon, the lobby hummed with its usual midday bustle, bellhops wheeling luggage, a concierge arranging a yacht tour, the faint clink of glasses from the bar. Samantha was mid-sentence, confirming a reservation for a honeymoon couple, when a shadow fell across the counter. She looked up to see a man in a loud Hawaiian shirt, mirrored sunglasses perched on his nose. his voice already booming before she could greet him. Hey, yeah. You behind the desk. I need a suite, pronto. And it better be good or I am taking my money somewhere else. Samantha's instinct flared an old itch to snap back, to match his tone with her own. She took a breath, steadying herself, and smiled instead. Welcome to the Regal Haven, sir. I'd be happy to help. Let us find you something perfect. Any preferences? The man his name tag read, Gary snorted, dropping a garish gold watch onto the counter with a clatter. Preferences. I want the best you've got. Ocean view, king bed. None of that cramped nonsense. I am here to live large, not squeeze into some closet. Her jaw tightened, but she kept her voice even. Of course, sir. Our oceanfront executive suite should suit you. Spacious private balcony, top floor. I'll check availability. She tapped at the keyboard, aware of his impatient foot tapping, his muttered complaints about slow service. The old Samantha would be fired off a cutting remark. Maybe if you stopped barking. ID moved faster, but she bit it back, focusing on the screen. Gary leaned over the counter, his cologne overwhelming. Better not be a wait list. I don't do wait lists. You know who I am? I own half the strip malls in Boca Raton. People don't make me wait. Samantha glanced up, her smile unwavering. I'm sure you're used to the best, sir. Good news, the Suite S available. I'll have it ready for you in 20 minutes. Can I get you a drink at the bar while we prep it? She gestured toward the lobby bar, her tone smooth as silk. He blinked, thrown off by her calm. Yeah? Fine. Whiskey sour. Make it quick. He snatched his watch back and strutted off, leaving Samantha exhaling slowly. Javier, passing by with a luggage cart, shot her a thumbs up. Nice save, Sam. That guy's a walking migraine. She smirked, shaking her head. Yeah, well, I am not letting him ruin my streak. Jordan D. be proud, right? Damn right, Javier said, wheeling away. You're a pro now. The day rolled on. Gary proving every bit the challenge she expected, complaining about the sweetest pillows, demanding extra towels, even snapping at a housekeeper over a speck of dust. Samantha handled each outburst with patience she hadn't known she possessed, diffusing his bluster with offers of upgrades and a quiet, steady demeanor. By evening, he'd softened slightly, grumbling less as he headed out for dinner. She watched him go, a small victory settling in her chest. It wasn't about him, it was about proving to herself she'd changed. The next morning, the lobby doors swung open, and a familiar figure stepped in. Michael Jordan, still in jeans but sporting a fresh polo shirt, strode across the marble floor, his duffel bag slung over one shoulder. Samantha straightened instinctively, a mix of nerves and excitement flickering through her. He said he'd be back, but seeing him now tall, unassuming, yet unmistakably him felt like a test she hadn't prepared for. Mr. Jordan, she said, stepping out from behind the desk, her voice steady. Welcome back to the Regal Haven. It's good to see you. He tipped his cap slightly, a faint smile playing on his lips. Good to be back, Samantha. How's the place treating you? Better every day, she replied, meeting his gaze. We've been working on that thing you talked about, making it a haven. I've been trying at least. Michael nodded, glancing around. The lobby felt warmer, somehow guests chatting easily, staff moving with a quiet pride. Looks like it's working. Heard you had a tough one yesterday, some guy with a loud shirt and a louder mouth. Her eyes widened. You heard about Gary? Daniel mentioned it, Michael said, chuckling. Said you handled him like a champ. That is not easy. Takes guts to stay cool when someone is pushing every button. Samantha flushed, a mix of pride and relief washing over her. I wanted to snap, believe me. But I kept thinking about what you said, picking battles. Treating people right. Figured I'd give him a win so I could keep mine. Michael's smile widened. That is the play. You're getting it, Samantha. Marcus, I'll be thrilled when I tell him. Before she could respond, Daniel emerged from the office, his face lighting up. Mike, you made it. Come to check my homework. Something like that, Michael said, shaking his hand. Looks like you've got a good team here. Samantha S. holding the line. Daniel clapped her on the shoulder. She is. That Gary guy, he left a decent tip and no complaints first time for everything. You've got a knack, Sam. Thanks, she said, her voice quieter now, but it's not just me. We were all trying, Javier, the housekeepers, everyone. You set the bar. Mr. Jordan. Michael waved a hand. Nah, I just pointed the way. You're the ones running the game now. Keep it up, I'll be back to see how you're redoing. Maybe next time I'll get a room that doesn't smell like mothballs. They laughed, the sound echoing through the lobby. Daniel led Michael toward the bar for a drink, but he paused, turning back to Samantha. One more thing, he said, his tone serious but warm. You're not just working here, you're building something. Don't forget that. She nodded, a lump in her throat. I want tea. Safe travels. Mr. Jordan. As he walked away, Samantha returned to the desk, her clipboard in hand, but her mind elsewhere. The Regal Haven wasn't perfect, no place was, but it was hers to shape, one guest at a time. Gary had been a test, and she'd passed. When Michael returned, she'd be ready not just to welcome him, but to show him a haven worth believing in. The sun climbed higher over Miami, casting long shadows through the lobby. Guests came and went, each one a chance to start fresh. And somewhere out there, Michael Jordan carried on, knowing he'd left behind more than a lesson. He had sparked a legacy of change, one small choice at a time.